Hey guys, so want to come on and give you guys these videos. If you're watching it, I pre-recorded it days and days and days before you got it because God dropped this on me some time back. I have to make time and record. We're going to be talking about seasons in this video, and then in the next video after this, we're going to be talking about you got me mixed up in the power of connection. Now we do have some videos talking about connections and be mindful of what and who you're connected to in seasons, like spiritual seasons of life, physical seasons, different seasons of life that you go through. But this is the download that God gave me. Then you guys should have a devotional video. Then for May, I'm going to come on and upload a lot of videos for the month of May. I'm going to do the prayer and the videos, and I just basically got to record, but everything is already pretty much written down. But let's talk about seasons. I'm gonna give you guys these points. I'm not gonna do my best not to be before you guys long. I want to talk about seasons. And the first point I'm going to give you guys before I get into the points actually are the scriptures. If the lightning goes in and out, please bear with me. I just want to get the videos out, guys. So the scriptures we're going to be in is Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, Genesis 8:22, Revelations 12, Matthew 2, especially verses like 13-23, Matthew 4 verses 1-11, Daniel 2:21, Galatians 6:9, Acts 1:1-7, Psalms 104:19, Psalms 1:1-3, and Genesis 1 verse 14. And if I don't get a chance to finish any of this, instead of doing part 1, part 2, guys, I'm just gonna post it below in the description box. So the points, guys, for seasons, let me give you the definition of seasons, right? According to Google, seasons, definition of seasons are each of the 4 divisions of the year, like spring, summer, fall, and winter, marked by particular weather patterns and daylight hours resulting from the earth's changing position with regard to the sun. So there's physical seasons of our lives. Seasons are also spiritual. We have different spiritual seasons that we go through, right, as Christians. So it's naturally, it's spiritually, it's different areas, and it's different areas and things in our lives of different seasons that we go through. And before I get into the reading, I'm just going to give you guys these points. The Lord said you are in the season of God, or you are in the season of the enemy. So according to seasons and different patterns and different timetables and different things that you are in your life, spiritually or physically, you're either there because God wants you to be there, you're on his divine table and calendar, you're in the season he wants you in, or it's a season of the enemy. So you got to look at, like, are you in God's will, or are you living for God, you in his will, or you for the enemy, are you in his will? Or let's say you're you want to be in your own will. Let's say you are a Christian but you following your own will, then that means you're not in the correct season that God really have for you, because you could go through a season where you're in the season of harvest because you've planted or you've sown. Or you can go through a season of wilderness because maybe you got some learning to do. Maybe God got to cleanse you, purify you, prune you. He teaching you new things in that season. He teaching you how to depend on him, or you're learning things, or he's removing certain things, or he ushering you into different types of seasons, but that's still the will of God. You could be in a season where you're in the valley, where you're in the mountain. You could be in a season where physically everything is fine, but spiritually you're dealing with certain things. You could be in a season where spiritually everything is fine, but physically you're dealing with certain things. So you can't look at we talked about this so many times before, but for you that probably didn't check out those videos, you can't look at like just what it looked like and take it just based off surface value. You got to look at what's happening spiritually and physically, and why, like what's behind it. So think about the seasons of your life that you've gone through, season of your life you're going through, and look at, am I in this season because of me, because of my choices and my will? Am I in this season because this is a God season, or am I in this season because the enemy is behind it? You kind of want to look at those things. So the season, you are in the season of God, or you're in the season of the enemy. It's no in between with that. Because just as God has righteous calendars and timetables and rewards and blessings. The enemy has certain calendars and timetables in different things that he ushers. And of course, he's not greater than God, but we got to be real. When you look physically, you know, there's positive and negative. There's consequences and rewards. And when you look spiritually, it's either you're in the kingdom of light or you're in the kingdom of darkness. There's no in between. You know, another point, it's important to know your seasons. Be like the sons of Issachar, which we're about to read about them. First Chronicles 12. We did a Chronicles series, so we read it, but it's talking about warriors joined David, others joined David at Hebron, and the sons of Issachar are in verse 32, and we did some series talking about them also. But it's talking about like warriors who joined David, and it's giving you guys the people's names and like their tribe and different things about David, and how numbers of men armed for battle also joined him. You know, and it's telling you like men, like for example, men of Judah carrying shield and spear, so many, like 6,800 armed for battle. It's telling you warriors and people that was armed for battle that were ready to join him. And in verse 32, it talks about men of Issachar who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. So men of Issachar, the sons of Issachar, they understood the times and seasons. If you guys have been with the channel for like a couple years or so, you've heard us mention Issachar, and I know many of you are familiar with the sons of Issachar, but you know, they understood, they discerned, they recognized the times and seasons, and they knew what Israel should do. And then it talks about 200 chiefs with all their relatives under their command, and then it continues on with men of Zebulun and men of Naphtali and Dan and Asher and all these different things. And then 13 gets into bringing back the ark. But you know, you want to be mindful of your times and seasons. You want to be mindful of the spirit and spirits that are behind your times and seasons. So it's important for you to know your times and seasons. And then another thing about seasons, like when we revisit and reread Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, I kind of want you guys, I know you guys are familiar with it, most of you, but I kind of want you guys to pay attention to the certain times and seasons it's talking about. Because let's say, for an example, God said you are in the season of waiting. Your season could shift immediately, suddenly, and you could be in a season of not waiting until reaping, or you could be in the season of fortness or whatever. But based on the time and season that God says you in, that's what you in. So you don't want to frustrate your season by being like the Israelites who complained and wandered in the wilderness and stayed longer than a lot of them had to, and they died out. Many of them, we have videos talking about it. And the people that God wanted to go in to possess that, you know, was doing it the righteous way. So you don't want to frustrate your season. You don't want to be in the season any shorter than you need to, because that means like you're not fully developed, or maybe you didn't fully learn what God wanted you to in that season, or you couldn't really receive, whether it be physically or spiritually, in the physical world, in any area of your life, or spiritually, what God wanted you to receive, you know. And then you don't want to be in a season too long, because it's like, well, that was where you were, but what about where God wants you to be? So that's why it's important to be discerned and know like your times and seasons, what times and seasons you're in, knowing when it's time for you to shift. So for example, with this one, if God says that you're in the planting season, your harvest may not be the same day, because you are in the season of planting. And you know, physically, just look, if you plant a seed right now for let's just say you planting for an apple tree, more than likely you're not going to reap a harvest of that apple tree tomorrow. If you plant a certain plant today in seed form, it has to take time. You got photosynthesis, you got to nurture it, the sun have to get to it, you got to care for it, tend to it, you know, different things like that, and let it take its course and process and grow. You know, it has to go deep down and come up and go through its process and grow. You know, it's going to face different things and changes, but eventually it's going to grow. So, you know, and I want you guys also to be mindful of this too. Like, let's say God say you in the season where he's teaching you patience. You know, you're going to go through things that you may feel frustrated. You're going to go through things where you may feel annoyed, because he's building up patience in you. It's going to help you be more moved by the Spirit and walking in the Spirit and having the fruits and characteristics of the Spirit. Let's say you're in this season where God is telling you to budget. He's telling you to budget because he's teaching you good stewardship. He's teaching you wisdom. He's teaching you financial stability. And he may be telling you to budget, so that we did videos talking about budgeting and all these things. A lot of videos on here talking about a lot of this stuff. But I'm being obedient to release what he's saying to release. But let's say he wants you to use that money that you're using to budget and save and things to be wise, because maybe he's having you save up for a home, or maybe he's having you save up for a business or a project or an investment or something. You're going to be glad you did it that way. So it's different things that we may learn in different seasons of our lives. Let's say God is saying, I'm going to teach you how to love more. You're going to be dealing with some people that's not lovable. When I say lovable, they are, they're made an image of God, but they may not be so loving towards you. Let me say that. Not that they're not lovable, but it's like friction. It's like sandpaper. That don't feel good if you're rubbing that against. So you may go through seasons where you have to really love on people that's showing love back to you, or maybe they're not being kind and showing love to you. So based on whatever season of life you're in, and that's your season. But when it's time for your season to change, then it will change. And, don't get caught up in when people want to release a season over you that God didn't ordain, that, or that's not that time, or that wasn't God at all. That's why it's important to be discerned and know what voices you're into, what spirit is behind that. We have so many videos and teachers talking about discernment too, but it's important to know. And it's important for you not to, be so tired of a certain season or going through a certain season where you're saying God said, but clearly that's not God, that's just you. So again, like we've talked about prior in other videos, you want to make sure you know your voice, God's voice, and the voice of the enemy, right? So, so be mindful of that. If God say you're in a season of waiting, there may be different things to try to get you to rush or take shortcuts, or do it this way to get this result, because that's a result that's going to be appeasing to your flesh, but spiritually you're not mature yet, or God didn't say it was time for that yet, or maybe that's not on his heart, or maybe he's saying yeah, but you gotta wait, not yet. So you want to be mindful of your season. This could be a season of studying. This could be a season of silence. This could be a season of observation. This could be a season of working, so that when your harvest comes, it'll be more ease for you. This could be a season of your increase of promotion for you. This could be a season of God pulling you to the front because you didn't been in the back for long enough. This could be a season of grooming for you, or pruning, or just whatever. It could be a financial season for you. It could be physically, it could be spiritually, it could be mentally, emotionally, it could be in your relationships, it can be in your business, your job, your career, it can be in ministry. It can be in any capacity of life. Okay, so there are seasons, and there are also times where you got to hear prophetically when God's saying your season is shifting, because sometimes he can shift and change your season quicker based off your obedience, or your heart, or your sacrifices before him, or just your heart posture, your relationship with him, or just he just sees certain things. So there are certain times where God can shift your season quicker. There are certain times where it may be a little bit longer. And there are some times where you gotta be open to receive the new for your new season. In the midst of a season, you could receive a new season. You get what I'm saying, guys? I don't have really time to get into that one, because that'll be a long teaching. But you get what I'm saying? You'll catch it. You'll catch what God is saying to you. While you in the middle of a season, to reach up and receive and take hold and claim a new season. But it's all working together because it's all aligned. So, again, like if God say that you're in a planting season, your harvest may not be the same day because you're in a planting season, but none of the seasons are going to be in vain when you stick and stay with God, when you do it the way he wants you to do it. Because that's going back to Romans 8. All things are going to work out for the good to those that he called, and according to his purpose. Not before me, but, there are seasons that you can receive and agree and claim. But ultimately, the season will change and shift when God says and determines that it's time to change and shift in that season, and when you are in agreement with God. Okay, so let's look at some scriptures. I'm trying not to be before you guys long. So that was one of the scriptures that we just talked about with 1 Chronicles 12:32. And now I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. I'm going to try to read these as quickly as possible. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. And it's been long today, guys, but I'm making time to do this video. But like I said, y'all will get it when y'all get it, when he tell me to release it. Ecclesiastes 3. Hold on, guys. What's going on? Okay, Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. I'm talking about a time for everything. So, while we talking about seasons, right? Time, seasons, right? Just listen to this. This is verse 1. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven. Verse 2. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. So there's times and seasons of being born. There's times and seasons of death. There's times and seasons of planting. And then there's times and seasons of uprooting. It's different times and seasons. It's certain times and seasons to do certain things. And it's better to do it in time and in season, because you'll find yourself, if you do it outside of time and outside season, it's not saying God don't see that and he won't honor it, but it could bring frustration. And it's like maybe the grace is not on it like when it was when he told you to do it. That's why it's better to obey when you understand or you don't understand, because nothing God tell us to do is in vain, whether it's something we understand or not, whether it's something we agree with or not. Okay, so there's a time to plant and a time to uproot. Verse 3, there's a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. So there's a time of killing. There's a time of healing. There's a time, and we have a lot of videos and teachings on Ecclesiastes 3, so I'm just going to keep reading and practical examples of this. You know, there's a time to tear down. And then it's also a time to build up, to build. Verse 4, there's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. It's times and seasons for different things, right? 5, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain. 6, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. 7, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So if you're in a season of silence, don't let nobody try to force you into speaking, or don't let your flesh or emotions or the enemy or history or your memories or whatever or suggestions get you into speaking, because God say, okay, this is my time of silence right now. I didn't spoke long enough in that season. Now it's my time of silence. Let's say you in a season of embracing, because you were in a season where you were refrained, or maybe you were pulled away, or he had you separated for a little bit, but now it's time to embrace. But also on the flip side, if it's a season for you to refrain, don't rush to embrace when this is your season of refraining. This is wisdom. If it's your season of weeping, you going through something. God could be healing you through that weeping. He could be cleansing you through that weeping. That weeping could be helping you draw closer to God and showing you the strength that you didn't know that you had. Don't say, oh, well, why am I weeping? And it's not saying that God wants us weeping and down and depressed. No, but it's certain seasons for different things. We can't over spiritualize everything. You know, you just can't do that. Like, if you get cut right now or injured, every time you get cut and injured and you super soldier, you super saint, super saved, but you human for a reason. So if you say ouch, it's okay. If you bleed, it's okay. If you need to nurse that wound, it's fine. You human. We have emotions for a reason. We have a soul for a reason. So you weeping, that weeping is not going to be in vain, but don't disregard it. Don't say, oh, because I'm weeping, I'm not strong. Or because I'm weeping, where's my faith in God? Don't say that to yourself. That just came to me for somebody. I'm telling you. Don't say that to yourself, and don't let nobody say that to you. If that's your season that you in, God is going to use that season to strengthen you. He's going to use that season to encourage you. He is doing something in that season for a reason. Who knows? Because of your weeping, God may use that to build you up over that time and season, to be able to bless and give your testimony for others when they going through their weeping season. You can go back and comfort them. So like, it's not wise to, let people make you feel like because you're in a certain season, or you're not where they want you to be, or you're not doing what they want you to do, that like your life or your season and your time is not important, because everybody in life goes through different things at different times and different seasons. Everybody. A person could look okay, outwardly. Hold on, guys, this water. A person could look okay outwardly, but inwardly they could be experiencing some things. And then, like, they could look fine on the outside, but then inwardly they could be experiencing some things. And then inwardly they could be fine on the inside, but outwardly is looking like something else. So you can't go based off that. You gotta be mindful of the time and season. And then another thing is this too, like, if it's your season to build, but you in the season of tearing down, or things were torn down in your last season, but you're not in your last season no more, like now you in your season of building, it's not going to be wise for you to still be in the season of tearing down when this is your season to build and build up. Like, if you was in a season of uprooting in your last season, and now God is saying it's time for you to plant, it's not going to be wise for you to still be uprooting and plucking up and like pulling up when he told you that it was your time to plant. So that's why it's good to be mindful of your times and seasons. Okay, so let me go on to the next scriptures because there's so much to read. So Genesis 8:22. Genesis 8, we have a Genesis series. It's continuing on from 7 and stuff. And it's talking about Noah and the ark and different things. But verse 22 says, as long as the earth endures or remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. And while this is on me, let me read Romans really quick. Let me read Romans. But that's talking about seasons also. Genesis 8:22. Let me read Romans 8 quickly. Not all of it, but let me just read Romans 8. It was one of them I wanted to read to you guys. Verse 28 was what I wanted to read. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. This is 28 through 30. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. So let me give you guys these other scriptures. Let's read Revelations 12. Living sacrifices. We just revisited this book and reread it also. But 12 is talking about the woman and the dragon. So a great and wondrous sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. His tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that he might devour her child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the desert to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle. I think I'm going to have to do a part 2 of a great eagle, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the desert, where she would be taken care of for a time, times and half a time, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who obey God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So that's Revelation 12. Matthew 2, I really want to hone in on verses 13 through 23 for Matthew 2. And we have read Matthew a lot also. But I really want to hone in on the escape to Egypt. But I'm going to read the visit of the Magi, because it ties in. Hold on, guys. It ties in to why they escaped. So we're going to revisit Matthew 2. And then it was the return to Nazareth. Like, it all ties in. So let me see if I can read this for the rest part of this video. And then we get into the other scriptures. So the visit of the Magi. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi, or wise men from the east, came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east," or they saw his star when it rose, "and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ or Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written." And this is from Micah 5:2. It says, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi, secretly, and find out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him," which he was being deceptive, because he really wanted him to die. Okay, so after they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. And not to get into this, but it wasn't just that these men were Magi or wise men. They were into this stuff, like the skies and the stars and all that stuff. So they took these things very seriously. Okay, so basically after they had heard the king, because he said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So one season, it was meant for them to go there. But in another season, it wasn't meant for them to go there. That's why wisdom and discernment is so important. To literally know your times and seasons. Like what season and time of life, spiritually and physically, you're in. So the escape to Egypt. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Jesus' earthly father, stepfather, and Mary husband, right? In the dream, "Get up," he said. "Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt. So do you see, while he was in the dream, while he was sleeping, they came to him in the dream and gave this to him. right? They weren't talking to his physical man while he was asleep, because when you are asleep, you are not conscious. So this was something spiritually happening. So they're giving him a spiritual instruction of what to do physically. So he got up physically, took heed to what was happening spiritually, took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. And that's Hosea 11:1. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. And this wasn't like it wasn't like a couple days, a couple hours. This was some time. This was some years had passed. He had been outwitted by the Magi. He was furious. Like when it clicked to him, like, oh, they ain't come back. Right? He was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and in his vicinity who were 2 years and older. That go to show you time passed by. 2 years and under. 2 years and under. In accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. So that means some years had passed. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. And that's from Jeremiah 31:15. So to return to Nazareth. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, he would be called a Nazarene.